Hey guys, Scott Rolliter here. I wanted to do a follow-up video to my most recent video series, which was the most important shot in pool. That was a four-part series on basically the straight-in shot and kind of breaking everything down to help people diagnose issues with perception, aim, alignment, stroke, etc. If you missed that series, there's a lot of good content in there, and I will provide links to all four parts in the description of this video below. So I'm going to show some examples that I found on YouTube. I just sort of randomly searched for some matches I've seen and some players I like to watch. The biggest challenge was just trying to find some clips where the camera work supported some of the things that I want to demonstrate and emphasize. So the concepts I'm going to mention are some of the key concepts that pretty much all top players do correctly, and they are also the things that I see many of my beginning, intermediate, and even some of my advanced students doing incorrectly. So let's just jump into it, and I will discuss some of the concepts as we go. So first up is Jason Shaw. In my opinion, he's one of the top natural shot makers in recent years, and I had the pleasure of meeting him and playing against him last year in the International 9-Ball Open in Virginia. He was actually my first round match, and certainly could have had a lot easier time of it than playing him, but I ended up losing 11-4 and gave up a game or two that nerves, just missing, whatever. But it was a great experience, and even better than playing against him that first round was the fact that we had a nice conversation after, and kept in touch the rest of the tournament. And I was there at the finale, right next to the table when he won, and got to give him a nice big congratulatory hug for his victory. And he's a super nice guy, and I really enjoyed meeting him and playing against him in that tournament. So this is a opening break shot in a match, and I want you to notice how even on a break shot, the top players, they take their time to aim everything, they go through their same routine. Many amateurs skip that step when they're breaking and they get down, they take less practice strokes than normal or faster practice strokes than normal, and they just kind of whack away with very little thought put into it. So watch here as Jason is aligning to this break shot. You can see that he's aiming, he's aligning to the shot. His head is directly over the line he intends to shoot down, and you can see that his head is also, he's leaned over his left or back leg so that he can see directly down the shot line. His head's not going to veer left or right, he's going to come straight down on the shot line. And then once he's down, he's going to take his time doing his practice strokes, validating his aim, and then he's going to go ahead and break.
Auto for third and fourth place.
Here's another shot by Jason. You're going to see him aim. He's a fairly fast player, so he's going to do that fairly quickly. However, he's still going to take the time to aim, and he's going to align to the shot. And you're going to see his head over his back or left leg so that he can come straight down into the shot the whole way.
He's going to go forward with this, I think. Yeah. Nice shot.
Now we're going to take a look at a couple shots from Hunter. Hunter is a friend of mine. He's also one of the best instructors I've ever worked with, and he has got impeccable fundamentals. Watch again as he shoots these shots, as he aligns to the shot, takes care in his aim, and has his head directly on the shot line as he comes down to the shot.
Excellent. You've heard.
The problem is it's ingrained.
Wait.
Jason grew up in Scotland. I grew up in London.
Yeah, well, is that why you talk funnier?
Yeah, because I went to school. And then just gave him the 9 and 10 in the previous rack.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he feathered, because he was close to the rail, I think he just feathered.
Another element of alignment that I want to talk about here is shoulder rotation. This is something that a lot of my amateur and intermediate students, and even again some advanced students, get wrong. We have this great overhead view of Hunter here, and you can see how stretched out his shoulders are, almost like an archer pulling back on a bow. And you can see that that puts his rear shoulder, his shooting arm shoulder, in a position directly behind his head and directly over the cue. It also gets his upper arm directly over the cue. This allows his elbow to be over the cue, which provides a perfect hinging point for his forearm and wrist to move in a straight line. If that elbow and upper arm are not reasonably over the cue, you are going to have to manipulate the cue in order to keep it straight on the way back and on the way forward. Funny enough, as I was doing the final edits on this video, I happened to see the gentleman behind Hunter on the table. I can't quite tell who that is, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit and I want you to take a look at his fundamentals as well and how nice they are. Once again, don't even know who this is, but they're at a top professional tournament. Look at the arm position, look at the shoulder position over the cue, look at the stretched out shoulders. These are common denominators found in almost all good players. As we go through more examples, I want you to take note of these key aiming and alignment fundamentals. Look for the care taken in aiming, the care taken when they're aligning to the shot. Watch how their head is directly over the shot line, and they're doing that either by having their body at a diagonal so that the head can be in line with the shot, or they're leaning out over their back leg in order to get their head on the shot line and keep it there the whole way down. And then, as I just mentioned, watch their shoulders. Look at how stretched the shoulders are in order to get that back shoulder over the shot line behind the head and also enable the upper arm to be in a good position over the cue as well.
It and called a foul on himself. Ended up just giving.
Even if he goes.
Here's another great view of Jason. You can see the alignment and you can see the stretch of the shoulders compared to the shot line. Also notice that he's cross-eye dominant, much like myself and many of my students, and notice some of the accommodations he has to make in order to get that cue under his proper vision center. Overall, excellent setup and alignment to the shot.
Down to defeat, he will have another chance here at the U.S. Open.
And in the end, I found it and was able to close him out. But I'm just really happy about being in after being down against Gomez, because that was the grinder, you know. And
already had one whitewash win in this tournament against Marcus Weston of Germany yesterday morning. He looked to be heading for another one, but I think you would suggest duel of.
You would think with Filler and some of those upper echelon top players is, and we talked about being efficient with open tables, but when they're tough, these guys still do it.
This is a great shot here of Joshua Filler demonstrating one of the two methods I mentioned on how to get your head over the shot line prior to getting down on the shot. He is leaned out clearly over his left or back leg, and his left leg, his left hip, his head, even his shooting hand is on his hip. Everything is in alignment, just ready to get down on the shot perfectly.
Yeah, they do a lot.
So he'll play a 2-rail speed coming right at that chalk, most likely, or kind of where the cue ball's at now.
Is he going to get behind the 10? It looks like he will.
Yes, he missed that shot, but that was not the purpose of showing the clip. It was a very difficult shot, and he still did a lot of things very correctly on that shot. Going to finish with a few clips from the Koh brothers. They are among my favorite players, all three of them actually now, and got a chance to meet them and watch them in several pro tournaments that I've been to over the last couple of years, and also met their coach and spoke with him for a little while. Very nice guy. And anyways, they have great fundamentals. And again, just watch the care that he's taking to aim and watch how everything comes down in alignment. He always takes great care when he's getting down on his shots, and he doesn't shoot before he's ready. And that's something that I'm actually trying to integrate into my game a little bit as well. I have a tendency sometimes just to shoot as if I'm in practice mode, and because I usually don't have the importance to my shots that these guys do. Here was a shot on a neighboring table at this particular tournament, and you can see this. I'm not sure who this is, but their fundamentals are also very, very nice. The way they got down on the shot and everything was, you can see a nice view of it. Here's the younger brother, Kuping Chun. Again, you can see how he just gets right down on the ball and execute very cleanly. Everything is in perfect alignment. Here's a few more shots from another tournament. Again, you can see the care that he's taking to map out the shot, see what kind of angle he needs. Not taking a lot of time, but it takes a few extra seconds when he needs to, and most of the top players do the same. They walk around the table quickly to see what needs to happen, and they have an instinct to know when they need to do that. It avoids making silly mistakes on the shots. Okay, here's another shot by his opponent, actually, who I wasn't familiar with. However, again, you can see he gets down, doesn't like something about it, and again, is not going to shoot that shot until he's ready. So he's making sure that the tangent line's not pointing to the pocket, making sure that he has a good clean angle on the 9, doesn't want to get hooked behind the 10 and do something silly. So now that he's ready to go, he's looking at his aim point. Now he's going to go over to the shot when he's ready, and he's going to actually pause for a second before he gets down on the shot. Many people I see, they look at their shot line like this, a contact point, ghost ball, whatever, and then they jump right down into the shot. You can see he looked at the spot for a second or two before he got down on it. That is what you want to do. And then that allows you to execute a nice clean shot and keep away from making some of those silly mistakes. So hopefully you've seen some great examples of things you should emulate in your own game when it comes to aiming and alignment. So next up, I want to show some amateur examples. There's not that many kind of mid-level APA matches out there on YouTube, but I was able to find a couple of examples where the camera angle showed what I wanted to show. So again, I'm not looking to pick on these individuals by any means. It represents a lot of people out there. And I just want to show you the difference in some of the things I've been highlighting when it comes to aiming, when it comes to aligning to the shot, when it comes to head movement, shoulder rotation, etc.
All right. They really need this. Dropping 9s. Need this 9 ball big time to stay in this match. No. Kind of twisted his wrist a little bit.
So the first thing to notice on this shot is that he's kind of chalking his cue, kind of looking at the shot, but he's never really fully committed to looking at the shot directly from the shot line. He finishes chalking his cue, sets it down, and moves into the shot. And you'll notice his head goes from outside the shot line diagonally toward the shot line, which is something I see a lot of amateurs do. So his setup isn't that bad, but you can see there's elements that are different from some of the examples we saw from the professional players. Number one, you can see that his arm and elbow are outside the line of the shot and outside of his cue line. And you can also see that his shoulders are much more open or square to the shot as opposed to being stretched out where you can get that rear shoulder behind his head. Those couple of things would probably make a difference in overall consistency. Obviously, we see the result of the shot. He ended up turning his wrist and steering the ball. Might have been worried about the scratch, might have been just had a little anxious moment over the shot, and that could be a fault of his. But again, that can happen. But I just really wanted to point out the alignment issues on this shot. And let's look at one more example. So in this example, you'll see a couple of things. Her shoulders are actually end up getting out into a pretty nice stretched out position. But you'll see that her elbow is quite a bit inside the line of the shot. Now, some players play that way and can do it quite successfully, but it really depends on your build and how you approach the shot. In this case, what it typically is going to do for most people is without your elbow being a good hinge above the cue, it causes you to have to manipulate the cue with your hand in order to keep it straight back and forth. The other thing you'll see is that even though she takes care to set the cue ball up where she wants, she then comes down diagonally into the shot. So she's not really aiming the shot until she gets completely down.
Again, as a reminder, this is a race to 4. Plan B on the hill with 3 victories already. Smoking Aces trying to get back in the match, starting right here with Brenda.
There's no way to say what they should. Well, and it's not that.
Obviously, some other things happened on that shot. Her arm completely broke down as she was stroking through the shot. But my point in showing these clips is that if you can get the aim, alignment, and stroke components down solid and work on the things that I presented in my last video series, it'll take you a long way. I have one more amateur example to show. In this particular clip, you can't even see the entire shooter, but she's doing something that I don't like to see in my students, and that is backing into the stance. So she lines up the shot, which is fine, but then instead of standing behind the line of aim and approaching the shot in a forward direction, she actually steps backwards into her stance. And you almost never see top players doing that. They're always moving forward, always stretching into the shot.
This is an interesting situation. obviously that all 3 balls are there for taking. You should just roll forward on the 5, and there'll be the 6 on the side.
So I want to finish this video emphasizing the aim and alignment portion of the fundamentals and showing you some before and after pictures that I have of some of my recent students. I have a bunch more kind of saved up, but I only keep so many on my phone. This particular picture is from one of my worst students, which is myself. And you can see that my alignment and everything, it's not perfect. My upper arm and my elbow are just slightly outside of the cue and outside of the shot line. And for me personally, I got into a bad car accident a couple years ago, and I had herniated and bulging discs in my neck. And I can rotate to where I can get to, and it's still sore every time I play. But if I tried to get that last little bit to get it perfect, it would go from being sore to being painful. And that's something I take into account with all of my students as well. I always ask before we make some sort of fundamental stance or shoulder alignment type changes to make sure that they're comfortable. And even in some of the pictures you're going to see here in a little bit, trust me, a lot of them said when they initially started stretching their shoulders a certain way, they're like, "Oh, that hurts a little." But the thing is, once you do it for a little bit, you stretch those muscles out, and then it feels okay. But certainly, if you have a knee problem, back problem, neck problem, shoulder issue, something like that, you just I then just work with them to try to get it as good as I can to try to promote a sound fundamental stroke. Again, if I could get my shoulder just a hair more behind my head, it would probably alleviate just a few misses here and there that do come from being slightly out of alignment. You will see, though, that my back has a nice stretch to it and that my shoulders are stretched out pretty well in relation to the shot line. Here's a couple of shots from me at the tournament last fall in Virginia. And I think overall things look pretty good. I'm a big believer in fundamentals and I work really hard on mine. And usually every time I see myself on a stream or in video, I usually set out to fix little things that I see that I'm not happy with. But overall, it's always a work in progress, and I think that's important for our journey as players to always strive to improve. So here's a short video from a student of mine, Brian, that I worked with actually right before all of this craziness started. And you can see in this video that his shoulder is well over the shot line. His elbow is actually over it, but it caused his whole arm to be crooked. And you'll see the result of that when he shoots this straight in shot. So do you see how that misalignment caused his arm to actually swing from inside out? And his stance was also pretty cramped. So here's the after picture. Can't see the stance because the table's in the way, but we widened his stance out. He was a pretty tall guy. And you can see his elbow now and his upper arm are directly over the cue. So I was having him practice on the ridge between the rail and the table to work on straightening out that slight inside out motion that he had as well. So in just 30 minutes or so in a lesson, I was able to straighten some of these things out, which enabled him to deliver the cue in a nice straight line. And the exercises we did right after that, he did so much better. Here's another student of mine. His name is Brian as well. And I met him around the same time as the first Brian. And you can see they have very similar issues in that the shoulder and the upper arm are outside of the cue line and outside of the shot line. Now, in this Brian's case, his upper arm is more parallel to the cue, and sometimes people can get away with that pretty well. But again, it's going to cause some inconsistency issues, some steering issues, etc. Also notice the flat open shoulders in relation to the shot line. Okay, so here's the after picture. Again, after only a little bit of working with them, we got the rear shoulder and the elbow directly behind and over the cue, and the shoulders have also stretched out quite a bit more. As soon as we made this change and got the cue under his proper vision center, his accuracy and consistency really improved. Here's another student, very similar, open shoulders, elbow and shoulder well outside the shot line. And here's the corrected position. Stance was changed slightly to support this, and then the shoulders are stretched more, which brings that rear shoulder and that upper arm directly over the cue. Here's one last example. My buddy Matthew, again, you can see some of the same issues going on. And here's the after. You can see the arm is perfectly straight above the cue. Shoulders are much more stretched out. everything is in good alignment, and we also fixed the stance a little bit so you can see how much clearance he has between the cue and his body, so he's able to swing that cue in a nice straight line, shot after shot. So here's my last example. This is my friend Lauren, and this is both a before and after picture. I had met her at one of the pool halls that had opened up in the area that was new, and she was working there, and somebody had mentioned to me that she could play pretty well, and she was looking for some instruction. And so I started to work with her.